Something is changing inside Walmart. And a fully stocked shelf doesn't necessarily mean everything is still normal. Store brands sell out first. Family sizes are becoming less common. Familiar products are being replaced by versions that are smaller, more blended, or more expensive per ounce. Food prices are still higher than they were last year, so shoppers are changing their strategy, checking unit prices, switching brands, and buying a little extra when the price makes sense. Today, we're counting down 12 foods that may not disappear completely, but are becoming harder to buy consistently in the sizes, quality, and price ranges families once relied on. Conditions may vary by state and by store. This is not a call to panic buy, and the number one item goes into tacos, burgers, chili, and meatloaf. But the price that once made it a normal dinner is gradually disappearing. 12 fresh tomatoes, 39.7%, then 32%, then 19.5%. That's how much higher fresh tomato prices in the US were compared with the same period a year earlier in April, May, and June 2026, respectively. The increase is slowing, but tomatoes are still nearly 20% more expensive than they were a year ago. Easing pressure doesn't mean prices have returned to normal. The problem isn't limited to just one vegetable. Tomatoes run through nearly every part of the American meal. A few slices of beefsteak tomato on a burger, Roma tomatoes in tacos and salsa, grape tomatoes in salads, or vine tomatoes in sandwiches. They're also the base of soups, chili, and pasta sauce. They were never considered a premium ingredient, but the ability to treat tomatoes as a default is gradually disappearing. Unlike rice or canned food, fresh tomatoes can't sit in storage for months while the market stabilizes. When extreme heat, heavy rain, water shortages, or labor disruptions affect a growing region, retailers have to find another source quickly. Longer shipping distances mean higher costs and more spoilage. Dependence on imports makes the supply chain even more sensitive. In 2025, Mexico supplied about 77% of U.S. fresh vegetable imports, excluding potatoes. The USDA also classifies tomatoes as heavily dependent on imported supplies. At Walmart, the price gap between Roma and beefsteak tomatoes may widen. Small containers of grape tomatoes may look affordable, but can be very expensive by the pound. Sometimes the tomatoes are softer and spoil faster, while sale prices still don't appear for weeks. When that happens, don't make fresh tomatoes do every job. Save them for sandwiches, salads, and dishes where they need to be eaten raw. For chili, soup, or pasta sauce, canned diced tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, and tomato paste are often more affordable and create less waste. Compare prices by the pound and buy only what you can use before the tomatoes soften or spoil. A tomato you have to throw away is always more expensive than one you didn't buy. When conditions allow, a tomato plant grown in a pot can also provide a small supply during the summer. Tomatoes are still in the produce section, but when an ingredient found in everything from burgers to pasta can no longer be purchased without a second thought, it's its place in everyday meals that is disappearing. 11. Frozen vegetables. A bag of frozen vegetables can be divided across 4 or 5 meals. There are no stems to remove, no soft parts to throw away, and no need to use everything within a few days. That's why this product has long been a reliable choice for retirees, people living alone, and families that have to account for every dollar. But that money-saving math is changing. According to the USDA, farm-level vegetable prices in June 2026 were 59.2% higher than during the same period a year earlier. Retail prices for fresh vegetables are also projected to rise about 6.8% for the full year. As fresh vegetables become more expensive, many people move to the frozen section to avoid waste. Demand often concentrates on the products offering the best value, store brands, basic vegetables, and family-size bags. A shopper may still see an entire freezer filled with color, but the basic bag of broccoli is gone. In its place are smaller bags, organic varieties, steam-in-bag products, or vegetable blends with sauce, all of which can cost more per ounce. The difference isn't in a few cents on the price tag, it's in the number of servings you get. If the larger bag disappears, a family has to buy 2 smaller bags to get the same amount of vegetables. For someone living on a fixed income, the cost that builds week after week may force them to eat fewer vegetables or cut back on something else. When shopping, calculate the price per ounce and the number of servings instead of looking only at the price of the entire bag. Vegetables without sauce are usually more versatile for soups, stews, stir-fries, and side dishes. A single out-of-stock item may just mean a delayed delivery. But if the store brand or family size is missing across multiple shopping trips, the math behind that bag of vegetables has truly changed. You can still buy frozen vegetables. It's just that every dollar no longer creates as many meals as it once did. 10. Breakfast cereal. An aisle full of cereal doesn't mean shoppers still have plenty of choices. At Walmart, the boxes still cover the shelves. The colors are still eye-catching. The words "family size" are still printed in large letters. But inside, there may be fewer ounces, fewer bowls of breakfast, and the variety a family used to buy every week may no longer appear consistently. That's how cereal is changing. Sometimes the price stays almost the same, but the box is lighter. Shoppers don't realize they're paying more at checkout. They just have to buy the next box sooner. That's shrinkflation. According to BLS data, breakfast cereal prices in June 2026 were about 2.3% higher than during the same period a year earlier. That increase isn't as steep as it is for beef or tomatoes, but it's happening while many families are already having to save money in nearly every part of the store. A 2026 McKinsey survey found that about 47% of shoppers had switched to store brands to reduce costs. As demand concentrates on store brands and best-selling products, less popular flavors, family-size boxes, or products with special formulas are more likely to be scaled back first. A low-sugar cereal may disappear for a few weeks. The high-fiber option may no longer come in the familiar size. Its old spot is quickly replaced by protein cereal, organic cereal, or a premium version that costs more per ounce. For older adults, this isn't just a matter of price. They may need a low-sugar, high-fiber, or diet-friendly option. The shelf is still full, but the choices that fit their health needs are being pushed into a more expensive category. Cereal is also part of a family's daily rhythm. It may be a quick breakfast before work, or a few quiet minutes before a busy day begins. When the exact familiar variety disappears, a small routine gets disrupted too. So don't put complete trust in the size of the box. Check the number of ounces, calculate the price per ounce, and estimate the actual number of bowls. Store brands are also worth trying before paying more for a major brand. With cereal, the first thing shrinking isn't the entire aisle. It's the number of breakfasts, the variety, and the affordable choices. 9. Canned vegetables. An extra 20 or 30 cents for a can of vegetables may not seem like a big deal. But if a family uses 20 cans a month, that difference becomes $4 to $6, enough for a loaf of bread, a gallon of milk, or a few more breakfasts. That's why canned vegetables deserve attention. For decades, corn, green beans, peas, and mixed vegetables have been among the cheapest ways to round out a meal. They require no prep, create little waste, and can turn leftover rice, pasta, or meat into a more complete dinner. But that price advantage is weakening. At Walmart, great value cans are often the first choice to sell out. Corn and green beans may still be on the shelf, but the low-priced store brand is gone. While major brands, organic versions, or higher-priced products remain. Multi-packs and no-salt added varieties may also appear less consistently. For older adults watching their sodium intake, this doesn't just take away an affordable option. It may force them to pay more or buy something that doesn't fit their diet. According to the BLS, prices for fruits and vegetables in the US in June 2026 were about 5.3% higher than during the same period a year earlier. That figure doesn't reflect canned vegetables alone, but it shows that price pressure is spreading across the entire food category. A can of vegetables doesn't just carry the cost of the vegetables inside. The metal used for the can, processing energy, labor, packaging labels, and transportation are all added to the final price. Because this product starts at such a low price, just a few costs rising at the same time are enough to change its place in the family budget. A can of green beans can round out Sunday dinner. A can of corn can stretch a pot of soup for 2 more meals. Each individual increase is very small, but the cumulative impact becomes clear when the bill arrives at the end of the month. When shopping, check the drained weight instead of looking only at the size of the can. 2 products that appear similar may provide different amounts of actual vegetables. Calculate the price per ounce and compare it with frozen vegetables when the freezer section is running a sale. Multi-packs aren't automatically a bargain either. Divide the total price by the number of cans before deciding, then move older cans to the front so they get used first. Canned vegetables are still a useful tool for a budget-conscious kitchen. But as cans under $1, store brands, and low-sodium options become harder to find, it's the price that once made them a default food that is gradually disappearing. 8. Orange juice. What happened to the drink that once appeared on the breakfast table so routinely that almost no one thought to check the price? Orange juice used to be poured before school, set beside the coffee at hotels, and served on meal trays in hospitals. But a familiar habit shared by generations is gradually becoming a more expensive choice. The cause begins in Florida. During the 2025-2026 growing season, the state's orange production fell to only about 9 million boxes, far below the hundreds of millions of boxes produced in the past. Citrus greening disease weakens the trees, makes the fruit smaller, and forces many growers to replace entire trees. Hurricanes have also continued to damage orange groves, irrigation systems, and processing facilities. A factory can add another shift. A diseased orange grove can't recover that quickly. New trees need several years before they produce commercial yields, so a weak season doesn't affect just a few weeks. It can limit the orange juice supply for years. As Florida's production declines, the U.S. relies more heavily on Brazil, which accounts for about 70% of global orange juice production. Imports help keep products available, but they also make prices at Walmart more sensitive to Brazil's growing seasons, shipping costs, and port disruptions. Shoppers may notice the changes right on the bottle. The container is smaller, even though the design looks almost unchanged. The section that once carried several varieties of 100% orange juice now includes more juice blends, orange drinks, or juice beverages. They may look nearly identical, but they don't contain the same amount of real juice. So read the label carefully and calculate the price per ounce. Compare 100% juice with from concentrate, not from concentrate, and frozen concentrate options. Frozen concentrate may be less convenient, but it can sometimes provide more servings at a lower cost. Orange juice hasn't disappeared completely, but the pure juice, familiar container size and price that once made it a normal part of breakfast, are becoming increasingly difficult to hold on to. Chapter 7. Bread. Imagine that last week, one loaf made 10 sandwiches. This week, you buy the exact same brand at almost the exact same price. But by Friday afternoon, the bread is gone. No one took an entire loaf away from you. Just 4 missing slices are enough to take away 2 lunches. That's how bread is changing. Not loudly on the price tag, but quietly in the number of meals each loaf can still provide. Bread is there from morning to night. It goes with eggs at breakfast, becomes a sandwich taken to work, sits under a hamburger patty, and is used to soak up the last bit of soup in the bowl. Because it appears so often, a small change in weight can affect the budget more than shoppers realize. BLS data shows that bread prices in the US in June 2026 were 3.9% higher than during the same period a year earlier. For breads other than white bread, including many whole wheat and specialty breads, the increase reached about 4.3%. But the price increase is only the part you can easily see. The harder part to notice is on the scale. A package can keep the same height, colors, and family size label, while the loaf inside is lighter, the slices are thinner, or there are fewer slices. The shelf price doesn't change much, so shoppers feel like they're still buying the same product. Only when the loaf runs out sooner do they realize that the actual cost per meal has gone up. This isn't entirely caused by the price of flour. A loaf of bread also carries the cost of labor, ovens, electricity or natural gas, packaging, and transportation. When several costs rise at once, manufacturers can raise the price directly, reduce promotions, or shrink the product to avoid a jump that is too obvious on the price tag. Pay attention to the basic bread section at Walmart. If the store brand regularly sells out first while organic, high-protein, or premium breads remain, the problem isn't that the store is out of bread. The problem is that the cheapest option is becoming less reliable. Whole grain or low-sodium varieties can also create additional pressure for older adults. They aren't simply looking for just any loaf, they need one that fits their diet. When that option is available only in the premium category, an ordinary health need suddenly comes with a higher price. So ignore the size of the bag for a few seconds and read 3 things: the weight in ounces, the number of slices, and the price per ounce. Then calculate how many sandwiches one loaf can actually make. That's the comparison that matters. You should also check the bakery section. A freshly baked loaf is sometimes heavier and offers a better price per ounce than packaged bread. On the other hand, if your family uses bread slowly, packaged bread may create less waste. And don't let the last half of the loaf grow mold. Freeze it from day 1. Separate the slices before placing them in an airtight bag, and take out only what you need. Bread doesn't have to disappear from the shelf to become more expensive. If each loaf provides just 2 fewer lunches, your family will have to buy another loaf before the month ends. And the next product may keep the same packaging and the same colors, while quietly changing right inside the ingredient list. 6. Chocolate and cocoa products. In June 2026, prices for sugar and sweets in the US were 6.9% higher than during the same period a year earlier. The USDA projects that prices for the entire category could rise about 7.2% in 2026, with chocolate candy being one of the biggest sources of pressure. But the price increase isn't the most important thing to notice. What's more important is that shoppers may pay more while getting less real chocolate. About 60% of the world's cocoa supply comes from Ivory Coast and Ghana. As unfavorable weather, tree diseases, and aging cocoa farms weaken production in West Africa, manufacturers face an ingredient that is far more expensive than it used to be. They can raise the price, they can reduce the weight, or they can quietly rewrite the recipe. That's where the real investigation begins. Not on the front of the package, but in the small print on the back. A bag of chocolate chips may still use the old logo, the same cookie image, and the familiar brown color. But the bag is lighter, the price per ounce is higher, and the order of the ingredients has changed. If sugar comes before cocoa, the product contains a higher proportion of sugar than cocoa. If palm oil or vegetable oil appears in place of cocoa butter, the product may still be sweet and melt in your mouth, but its texture and flavor are no longer the same as traditional chocolate. Then there are the words that are very easy to overlook. Chocolate flavored. Chocolatey coating. Cocoa flavored. They sound almost like chocolate, but they don't necessarily contain the same amount of cocoa or cocoa butter. A brown coating can still look perfect on a dessert, even if most of its structure comes from sugar and vegetable oil. So what's disappearing isn't the chocolate-colored packaging. It's the amount of real chocolate inside. This change extends beyond candy bars. Chocolate chips, cocoa powder, baking chocolate, brownie mix, and hot cocoa are all under the same pressure. A product may keep the same spot at Walmart, but become smaller, sweeter, or more expensive per ounce. And the clearest difference usually appears in the kitchen. The smell of chocolate chip cookies fresh from the oven, the soft center of a brownie, or a dessert made from an old family recipe all depend on the quality of the cocoa. When cocoa butter is replaced with vegetable oil or the amount of cocoa is reduced, the ingredients aren't the only thing that changes. The flavor of memory is being rewritten too. So instead of looking at the beautiful dessert image on the front, read the label in this order. Where cocoa appears, whether cocoa butter is included, where sugar appears on the list, and whether the product is called chocolate or only chocolate flavored. If you mainly use it for baking, pure cocoa powder may offer better value than many pre-mixed bags of chocolate chips. Compare by the ounce, not by the size of the bag. At the same time, don't buy too much just because you're worried prices will keep rising. Chocolate can easily lose its aroma and change in quality when exposed to heat, light, or moisture. Chocolate is often considered a luxury. The next product is the exact opposite. A shelf-stable protein source that many families chose precisely because it used to be very affordable. 5. Canned tuna prices for shelf-stable fish and seafood in the U.S. in June 2026 were about 6.6% higher than during the same period a year earlier. But with canned tuna, the number on the price tag still doesn't tell the whole story. A can labeled 5 ounces doesn't mean you're getting 5 ounces of fish. The water or oil inside is also included in the weight. After draining, the amount of fish actually left can be significantly lower. So a can that looks cheaper doesn't necessarily provide more protein for every dollar. For years, tuna was almost impossible to beat for convenience. It requires no thawing, no lengthy cooking, and can be stored in the pantry. One can become lunch for someone living alone, sandwiches for the grandkids, or a casserole large enough to feed the whole family. But that price advantage is being eroded from the ocean to the processing plant. Supply depends on catch volumes, fishing regulations, fishing vessel fuel, labor, packaging, and transportation. The FAO previously reported that tuna catches remained weak even after a fishing restriction period in the Western and Central Pacific ended. That means raw material supplies don't always recover immediately. As costs rise, the differences between types of tuna become more noticeable. Chunk light usually remains the cheapest. Albacore is lighter in color, firmer in texture, and milder in flavor, but it costs more. Low-sodium varieties offer fewer choices, even though this is exactly the product many older adults need. A shopper may go to Walmart looking for the familiar 4-pack of low-sodium tuna, only to find individual cans of albacore, pouches, or premium brands. They can still find tuna, but not the exact type or price they once relied on. So calculate the price based on drained weight, not total weight. Then compare cans with pouches, because pouches usually contain less liquid and sometimes offer a better price per ounce of fish you can actually eat. A value pack isn't necessarily a bargain either if the cans are smaller or it isn't the type the family normally uses. Sardines, canned salmon, and canned chicken are also worth comparing from time to time. Tuna used to win because it was cheap, convenient, and didn't require refrigeration. But now, shoppers are no longer paying only for a can. They're paying more for every ounce of actual protein left inside. 4. Canned salmon. A can of salmon in the pantry provides something very practical. A meal rich in protein and omega-3s that can be prepared in minutes, without thawing or making a last-minute trip to the store. But that peace of mind is becoming more expensive. Nearly all commercially caught pink salmon in the U.S. comes from Alaska. In 2024, U.S. pink salmon production reached about 101 million pounds. However, this supply can fluctuate sharply from season to season because pink salmon have a life cycle of only about 2 years. If fewer fish return to Alaska than expected in one season, processing plants can't simply add another shift to make up the difference. Fewer fish caught means less raw material moving into cold storage, canning lines, and retail systems in the months that follow. The type affected most clearly is often wild pink salmon, the moderately priced option many families buy to keep on hand. When supply is weak, the basic variety may appear less consistently, while sockeye, skinless and boneless, or premium products remain available but at higher prices. That's how salmon disappears from the budget before it disappears from the store. Pink salmon is usually cheaper than sockeye and still works well for salmon patties, salads, or casseroles. Skinless and boneless varieties are more convenient, but usually cost more. In contrast, salmon with soft bones may cost less and provide extra calcium, a notable benefit for older adults. So don't look only at the price on the can. Check the species, number of servings, whether the product still contains skin or bones, and how the family will actually use it. If the familiar wild pink salmon is repeatedly missing across several shopping trips, store brand availability is inconsistent, or the price gap with sockeye keeps widening. That's a sign the affordable option is under pressure. When it goes on sale, buy a few cans within the amount your family will definitely use instead of stocking up on an entire case. Canned salmon can still provide a quality meal when the refrigerator is nearly empty. But if moderately priced wild pink salmon remains inconsistent, shoppers will have to pay more, switch to another protein, or give up the peace of mind that once sat ready in the pantry. The next product doesn't depend on the ocean. It's under pressure from harvested acreage, seaports, and the global rice market. 3. White rice. What happens when the food that once helped a family stretch its budget across dozens of meals is no longer as cheap as it used to be? The USDA's latest forecast shows U.S. rice production for the 2026-2027 marketing year falling to about 153.3 million hundredweight, the lowest level in 39 years. Meanwhile, rice imports are projected to rise to a record 49.8 million hundredweight to make up for the domestic shortfall. These numbers don't mean every bag of rice will disappear at once. They show that domestic supply is getting thinner, while the market has to rely more heavily on rice moving through seaports, shipping containers, and international transportation networks. At Walmart, the changes may begin very quietly. 5-pound bags are still on the shelf. Bags with attractive designs or imported brands are still available. But 10 or 20-pound bags, the ones that usually offer a better price per pound, may become less consistent, sell out faster during sales, or be replaced by smaller sizes. That's what matters to people living on a fixed income. A bag of white rice can be paired with beans, canned vegetables, chicken, tuna, or eggs. just one basic ingredient can stretch many meals, help use up leftovers, and reduce the number of times a family has to buy expensive protein. But when the large bags disappear, shoppers have to come back repeatedly to buy smaller ones. The checkout price each time may look lower, while the cost of the same 20 pounds of rice is clearly higher. The pressure doesn't stop there. The USDA has also raised its forecast for the average farm price of rice to about $14.90 per hundredweight, $1.40 higher than its previous forecast. Farm prices don't translate directly into retail prices, but they show which direction this basic staple is heading. When shopping, ignore the feeling of which bag is cheaper and look directly at the price per pound. Choose the type your family actually eats. Store it in a sealed container in a cool, dry place and rotate older bags to use them first. There's no need to fill an entire room with rice. But with U.S. production at its lowest level in nearly 4 decades, the large bags offering the best value are worth watching more closely. Because rice may still be available at Walmart while its ability to create more meals for less money has already begun to shrink. 2. Coffee. A 1-month drop in coffee prices doesn't mean coffee is cheap again. In June 2026, coffee prices in the US fell about 2% from the previous month. But compared with the same period last year, prices were still 12.9% higher. Instant coffee alone rose as much as 15.9%. In other words, prices have only pulled back from their most recent peak, while the old price level is still far away. That's how a daily habit is being repriced. The sound of the grinder, the smell of coffee spreading through the kitchen, and that first cup in the morning still feel familiar. But a bag of coffee that once weighed 12 ounces may now contain only 10 ounces. The listed price doesn't change much, while the number of cups each bag can make goes down. The pressure begins with 2 sources of supply that have a major influence on the global market. Brazil plays an important role in Arabica, the type of bean commonly found in whole bean coffee, specialty coffee, and products labeled 100% Arabica. Vietnam is a major source of Robusta, an ingredient commonly used in instant coffee and many Arabica Robusta blends. When weather or production in these 2 countries fluctuates, the first products to come under pressure are often moderately priced bags of 100% Arabica, larger sizes of whole bean coffee, and the sales that once helped shoppers stock up at a reasonable cost. In their place, store brands and blends appear more often. They aren't necessarily inferior products, but some bags are labeled only coffee blend, without clearly stating the ratio of Arabica to Robusta. Shoppers still see plenty of choices, but the familiar bean type, package size, and price have changed. Coffee pods show the difference most clearly. They're convenient, but the cost per cup is usually significantly higher than ground coffee. A box of pods may not look too expensive at checkout, but after 20 or 30 mornings, the cost difference becomes clear. So compare the price per ounce and the actual number of cups, not just the price of the entire package. Switching from pods to ground coffee can help reduce costs. Coffee should be kept sealed, away from heat, and purchased only in amounts you can use because its aroma gradually fades when stored for too long. The morning cup is still there, but smaller bags, more expensive Arabica, and less frequent sales are making every brew take more from the monthly budget. The next item is what millions of families turn to when they need a quick, familiar, and filling dinner. 1. Ground beef. Tacos, meatloaf, burgers, and chili are still normal dinners. But the price that once made them normal dinners is gradually disappearing. By mid-2026, the U.S. beef cow herd had fallen to about 28.5 million head, down 1% from the previous year. The number of calves expected to be born during the year also fell to 32.5 million head, down another 2%. Those two numbers explain why beef prices are unlikely to fall quickly. A processing plant can add another shift. A cattle herd can't add another breeding shift. To rebuild the supply, ranchers have to retain cows instead of selling them for beef. Then comes the pregnancy, the birth of the calf, the time needed to raise it, and finally, its entry into the supply chain. The entire process takes years, not months. While the cattle herd recovers, the first things that usually move out of shoppers' reach are sales and family packs. The 90-10 variety contains more lean meat and loses less during cooking, but it usually costs the most. The 70-30 variety looks cheaper on the label, but more fat cooks out, so its actual value after cooking may not be as good as shoppers think. For many dishes like burgers, tacos, or chili, 80-20 is often the best balance of price, flavor, and the amount of meat left after cooking. So don't look only at the price per pound before cooking. Consider the lean-to-fat ratio, how much is lost during cooking, and the actual number of servings. When family packs go on sale, divide them into 1-pound portions, flatten them, and freeze them. This helps them thaw faster and prevents you from having to use the entire package for one small meal. In spaghetti sauce, chili, or taco filling, beans, lentils, or mushrooms can help stretch the servings. Ground turkey and ground pork are also worth comparing when the dish uses plenty of seasoning. Ground beef is still in the refrigerated meat case, but as sales get shorter, family packs become less common, and higher-fat ground beef becomes the budget option. The price that once put burgers, tacos, and meatloaf on the table every week is no longer as easy to find. The important thing after today's list isn't to rush to Walmart and fill up your cart. Watch for 3 changes: store brands and family sizes selling out first, the price per ounce or pound rising even when the price on the package changes very little, and familiar products gradually being replaced by smaller or more premium versions. Then choose the 3 items your family uses most. Write down the price per ounce or pound. When you find a reasonable price and have a suitable place to store it, buy a little extra at a time. A prepared shopper isn't the person with the fullest cart. It's the person who notices changes early, understands what their family actually uses, and doesn't waste money on things they don't need. If you could choose only 3 foods from this list before your next trip to Walmart, which ones would you choose? And what are prices like where you live right now?